Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Today's episode is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. The Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Today, Bianca Harmon is joining us again. She is our D2C marketing strategist. How's it going, Bianca?
Going good, Drew. Excited to talk to Claire today.
Yes, today we have Claire Weinkauf, co-founder of Picayune Cellars in Calistoga, California on the show. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for joining on. So Claire, you founded Picayune Cellars back in 2011?
Yes, absolutely.
What leading up to that? Talk to me about your journey in wine that led you to the point where you started Picayune Cellars.
Absolutely. So very quickly, everybody's going to notice I come with a little bit of an accent. So I'm actually originally from France, from Auvergne, right in the middle of France. It's not really well known as a wine region. I personally never thought I could work in the wine industry. My family is not necessarily in it, and 25 years ago, a wine industry in France was still pretty, kind of tight. Mm-hmm. I did always had interest to work with my nose, but wasn't quite sure, how to make it happen. Study something totally different. Shortly started embarking for some trip abroad and realized that I was kind of more excited about living outside of France than in France. The journey took me finally to Chile. And then that's in Chile that I started realizing that wine could be super fun and much more democratic per se, like they were fun label. I met a lot of people, all, kind of origin, working in the wine industry. And I thought, wow, this is kind of possible here. Started taking classes in Chile and then decided to go back to France, work harvest and kind of learn, a little bit more, put my hand in the dirt. Really loved it. And it kind of it allowed me to click like a lot of boxes of the things that I was interested by. And then ultimately went back to Chile, started working there. And then made amazing, met.
How is Chile different than France? Was there any sort of?
Yeah, I mean, it was so different because it's a very young industry. And basically, nobody really comes with, like 5-generation winemakers behind them or with, amazing terroir that have been, planted. I mean, now we are discovering like older, vineyard, but there is not, that historical kind of weight and kind of aura with it. So anybody really interested by it can, was able to go to school and then find a job. Now on the industry side of things, it's different. There were, at my time, we are talking now like 2002 when I, started being in Chile. It was mostly like really large companies. So there were not like the garagist movement that you see now and the smaller producers. Yeah. It was more like a larger scale.
But I'm happy to see that because there was a lot of large companies that just kind of went into Chile and just started big production.
Absolutely. And, even the Chilean were also looking into those larger production kind of like, facilities. So I think they've done, it's like any kind of new industry, they just got to go for a lot of steps. But what was wonderful for me is the energy that the industry had. And it was very contagious and it made you feel that anything was possible. And even though you had no family, no, money, no vineyard, you could do it. You could just go start school, learn more, and then kind of build up. So I love that. And that was very different than what I was used to, in France.
And if you were in France, how would that route have gone? Like, how would you be able to do that there?
honestly, my family probably would have needed to be in the wine industry, and I would have need to have no older brother. If we look like, 30 years ago, pretty much is that it, I think it's very different now, and that's exciting that it's very different. I think there's been like with the emergence of like new markets all over the world, I think it's changed, everything.
Absolutely. So you didn't grow up, your family wasn't in the wine industry. You didn't really grow up in the industry. What drew you to it?
Let's see in here. They were not into it, but of course, being from France, I grew up, my family loved wine. My grandpa actually was making some garage rosé, that he would bottle in jerrycan. We are talking like, horrible, like Pinot Noir and green, that were not ripe at all. Anyway, it was really fun. Like you had to have your belly like pretty well attached for it. But but they did love wine. They were not like a gathering of my family that would start without wine. They always talked about it. It was always part of the meal. There were always those conversations about, it was a guest at the table. Sure. So it was always, part of the story. And then as I grew up, I had several like experience that made me realize how, the power of wine. And I thought it was so fabulous because when you think about it, it's something, it's a fruit growing, in nature. And then it can become the most refined and amazing, I don't want to say product, but I'm going to say that for lack of other word right now, on the table, and it can create that magical moment and just like stop, anybody from talking because it's so intricate and complex. And, it can create so much emotion, pretty much like music or, any kind of other art piece. And that's what I love about wine is that, it's obviously like really grounded in nature, but it's just as beautiful and create as much emotion as a Picasso. So why not?
Conversation starter.
Absolutely.
Great. So that sparked your interest in getting into the industry. So flash forward from working down in Chile and coming up here. And then how did you end up deciding to found Picayune Cellars?
That is kind of a funny story. I never, I never really thought I would be like an entrepreneur, and I never really thought about starting, my own wine label. It was just serendipitous. When I arrived, in the US, and I'll just say one thing. When I describe myself, before being anything else, I'm a wine lover. I love wine. And so when I arrived in the US, I was kind of surprised how difficult it was to find wines that I loved, like, what I stylistically loved and that I could afford. Uh-huh. I would find them, but in general, like from California, they would be really expensive. It was tough for me to find a Pinot that was not $70 a bottle. It was tough, and so.
Did you arrive in Calistoga when you first came out here?
No, I arrived in Sebastopol. I met Paul Hops in Chile, and then I did a hop in Argentina, and then moved to Sebastopol. So
okay,
it was a brief. It was a year and a half, and then after that, I moved to Calistoga. Mm-hmm. But so sorry. Back to the story. I was struggling finding those great wine, and
what style were you drawn to that you couldn't find?
I probably wines that were maybe not as extracted as a lot of like more affordable California wines are. And then, I'd say extraction, and then oak levels. I like a little bit more subtle wines.
I always call it the European style, and I gravitate towards French wines myself, French and Italian.
So this is it. You know, I was ending up like drinking mostly European wine, and I thought it was really a bummer because, you know, I had never done that throughout all the different countries I had lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there's got to be something, you know, and I tried all the things. I'd go to, you know, Bottle Barn and pick like a million things. I'd go to Trader Joe. I mean, I did the Trader Joe. I was like, there's got to be something.
Every once in a while, they can get a gem in there.
Exactly. And that's it. Every once in a while, you know, there is something, but it's tough. So, you know, it was always in the back of my mind, and I was pretty busy. I had my job, etc. And then it was like during a dinner with all kind of amazing people working in the wine industry. You know, everybody always bring bottle and we taste everything. And I tasted the wine that I thought was amazing. And I thought, wow, this is really good. Like, I'd buy some of that. And the friend says, well, you know, we might sell some. And I said, well, I'd be interested. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to call a bunch of girlfriends. We'll get together. We'll, you know, and bottle that a weekend. And then, you know, everybody like chip in and, you know, go home with a couple cases of wine. I mean, that was my thought. Well, it turned out the friend called and it's like, hey, were you serious? I'm like, absolutely. I'm going to come with a pickup truck and, you know, I'll bring you back the barrel. Like, no problem. He's like, well, Claire, you need bigger than a pickup truck. It's 1,000 gallon. And I'm like, whoa, I actually need more friends. I need more friends. So I let it go. But then I kept thinking about it. And a friend of mine, who I would, you know, we hanged out a lot and we had the same taste in wine, and we had arrived around the same time in the valley. We always had those conversations about how difficult it was to find those wine. And so she popped up at the time, you know, we all had Gmail open and you had the chat. So she popped up on that Gmail chat and then we started talking. We went on a hike and I asked her if she would buy 1,000 gallons of Sauv Blanc with me. She said yes. And I guess that's how, you know, like it was a little crazy. It was 2011. So the market was not doing really good, but I don't know. She was also working in the wine industry. I had started consulting. And we both thought that it would be a great insight, like to be in the spot of the, you know, of the maker. And so we thought, well, you know, let's do it. Our goal, like the whole business plan was, let's sell it the cheapest we can without losing any money. The perk was we can drink as much as we want, no question asked. And that was that. It was going to be a one-time thing for fun.
So you bought this 1,000 gallons and then you guys bottled it. Did you label it too? Did you come up with the?
Oh yeah. So that was a lot more complex than that because well, there is a license thing. So she was co-owner of another business. So that she asked and we were able to use their license. And then her husband, Nathan, was bottling a month later. And he said, yes, you guys can piggyback on our bottling. So that's what we did. But that meant we had 1 month. We had no time to come up with like the label because it needs 21, you know, they need 20 days, business day in general to print it. So here we are, like the next day, I know I have to come up with, you know, like a name and a, you know, and a label. And because of my consulting, I had already like, you know, friend in that business. And so Picayune means a little bit in Old French. It comes from Picayune in Old Provençal. And we were going to make only a little bit. And then in the US, that used to be a coin that the Spanish brought. And that coin was worth half the value of the real. And so, you know, the wine we were buying from the real winery, you know, we were ending up selling, you know, half their price technically. So we thought it was clever.
Oh, that is clever. Yeah.
And then, the key on the label, when I received, obviously the winery, we bought the wine, they sent us a pretty big contract, you know, where we couldn't say anything about anything really. And then we needed to add a little something, you know, like a 5%, or I can't remember. I think it might have been 10% of something else in it. So anyway,
you couldn't just exactly rebottle their wine for half the price.
Yeah, we had to do something different about it. So of course we did. And, but it felt like James Bond. We were unlocking secret stuff. And So I thought, I talked with my friend designer and I'm like, I feel like we are unlocking some secret stuff. Like, let's do a key and maybe let's have it fly to the people, So the original label is actually atrocious. It's like that. It's like the key, but it has some big wings and we had a keyhole on the cork. We had no time for a capsule. So it was just like, we were like in the pioneer of just having a cork in the, and no capsule on the.
That was early in the.
That was really early, and so we did like a design. It was a keyhole. So then with their wine key, they were opening the secret. Anyway, we thought we were clever.
That is pretty clever. I like that.
Yeah. So so that's how it started, and it was gonna be a one time for fun. It was super fun. We did not expect it. More friends started reaching out with like, hey, I have 2 barrels of this, 3 barrels of that. We said no, but then samples started popping up. Loved the Grenache, but thought it was missing Syrah. Started calling friend making Syrah, for just 1 barrel. By the time we are done blending that, it's time for Sauv Blanc again. We're like, well, we might as well, we are having fun. And we were learning like a ton about everything. It was super helpful for my business. And I think it was also very helpful for hers. So we thought we might as well, and then we knew there were that Pinot that, that we wanted to drink a great Pinot that was $30 and not 70. So we wanted to tackle that one. And then I had the Merlot in my mind, so many people were bashing Merlot and I really wanted to do like a right bank blend because I had done harvest in Saint-Emilion. And so we just, to be honest, and it's a theme with how I've operated the business, is like, we just pursued the stuff we loved and, we wanted to drink. It was fairly selfish. And I have to admit, I still sort of go by those rules where, what it is, I want to drink or when it comes to the store, what are the stories and the people that I just love their product. And so that's how, like the whole business plan. Here you go.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me because nowadays people are calling all over trying to find wine and grapes. There's they're having a hard time finding it, right? Finding extra wine because they've lost from the fire or smoke tank and this. And here you were having people contact you. Hey, do you want to take some wine? And it grew into what it is now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been, I guess you're touching on something important right here. It's been kind of like, it's opportunistic for the most part. And so it has its ups and downs. I've been fairly lucky over the years. You build relationship, by being respectful as well, of the wineries that are, willing to, share with you some of their barrels. And I feel like I've always kind of really walked the line to put, Johnny Cash. But I've always been very respectful. I think my wines have like a very, pretty clear like personality, and at least my clients, tell me that they can tell that this is me. So I feel like it's been a win-win for everybody working with me, and I try to continue to be very respectful. But
for sure. So starting with 1,000 gallons of Sauv Blanc, and then so you had to figure out how to sell that, because you're not going to drink it all.
Oh, that's the fun part, Drew. That was the fun part, man. I'll tell you a funny story. Like the first time we went to sample the wine. So we were going to sell, and we are selling everything wholesale. We had no website, no taste, no nothing. So she comes to my place, and we're so excited. We are giggling like 2 teenagers in the car. I can see us, like I used to have that little mini convertible, and we get the 2 of us, we put the tops down, and we're like, woo, let's go sell the wine, yay, California style. And we're just like passing the gates, and I look at her and I said, Jen, you have the sample, right? She's like, no, you took the sample, right? And so we were literally, going to our first appointment, like with 0 sample with us. That's how goofy and excited we were. But the reality is, we did really well. We got such a great response in the valley because how many great Sauvignon Blanc can you think of, in this valley? Not that many. So we got amazing placement. I mean, press had our Sauv Blanc by the glass, and that was the time where they own red, like they had the red as well by the glass. So it was amazing. Like we really, we did a pretty good job. And so it wasn't, we kept laughing that we might drink Sauvignon Blanc for the rest of our life with our crazy move. But it turned out amazing. Like we ended up, doing a really good job. And at the time we were only selling in California. So then, in 2012, we started the LLC and then we started looking for distributors. So by the time I bought Jennifer out in 2015, like we had quite a bit of distribution. And then when I bought her out, that's actually when I started. I went a different route, but yeah.
Now, did you have a storefront before 2015?
No, never.
Okay, so that's when you started moving in.
That's when the shift happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of working with co-founders. That's always a challenge. And I don't, because you always have competing directions on where things want to go. But if looking back today, in 2022, back to 2011, would you have done anything differently?
Let's see in here. I think there is not very many things I would have done differently, but there is a few. I think they have more to do with, now that I've, bought Jennifer out. I have moment where I debate with myself our decision of selling the wine the cheapest we possibly could. Then when I bought her out, I realized I couldn't keep my day job because we never built a salary. I mean, we never built anything, so that's why I had to change the business model to have a tasting room, and I had to kill the wholesale pretty much because I needed to find the money to pay myself. I didn't want to change the price of the wine because that was the story, or the style, that was my perk. So I could only change the channel, which is what I did. That's why I opened the tasting room. And I still have tried to stay put with the price and trying to keep them on the lower side. And I have moment where I get mad, I'm like, because customer come in and they want a discount. And I'm like, the discount is already done, and then I see winery that have, a price inflated by, 30, 40, 50%. And then if you buy your case, I'll give you 50%. Yeah. I'm just like, did I made a mistake thinking that people don't want to play around and just were like me, and we're just like, I just want it, straight and honest. And here, I don't want to play games.
Yeah, overestimating the consumer mindset. They'd rather see a price double and down 50%.
And for me, it's like cheapening. It means you don't, like, if you have to give 50% off your wine, it means something's wrong about it, right? So I guess, I have moments with that. And then, I'm still learning, obviously, like the retail and the tasting room and all of that. And I really wish I had, the soonest I could have, I wish I had bought a building and not been scared by, not so scared, I guess, but.
Yeah, it is. I mean, opening up a retail store is really intimidating.
And you didn't just open up a retail store. You opened one up in Calistoga.
Yes. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you. Yeah.
What's it like in Calistoga?
I love, it's a village. I love my village. So the reason I moved to Calistoga, my husband works in Santa Elena. And at the time I was working in Sebastopol. So we had to find like a common ground. So I guess I lost at the coin toss, right? We were a little closer to Santa Elena than Sebastopol. But so I was a little anxious when we moved here. I was like, ooh, there's only one store. Ooh, there is no movie theater, just a few restaurants. I was like, ooh, how's that going to be? And then I moved here, and I have to admit, I loved it. Didn't have to use my car anymore. I can just walk everywhere. farmers market. Everybody knows each other. Everybody, talk to each other. So I've totally embraced it and love it. But it's a funny town to do business in because there is very few landlord and owner of buildings. So then it's a battle with them. A lot of them are investors. They are not necessarily, in business. So they don't necessarily understand business. So it comes with a lot of complication. And then, it's a town that is obviously, I think when I think of Napa Valley on the scope, we are the northern tip. I see it both ways. I think we are still the more rustic, but I also think we are still the most authentic. And I love that there is not only wine, there is also, the hiking, there is the thermal water. There is a lot of stuff. So I love that about us. But yes, we are a little north and we're still working our kinks and learning how to be a town.
I love Calistoga. It's actually been a few years since I've been there. Bianca lives just down the road from there.
I know I cannot get Bianca to come up and see me.
I'm gonna come up. All right,
you better do. That's a promise.
I promise I'm gonna come up. I've actually been thinking about it. I've been doing some kids summer, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna get up there. It's at the top of my list. But that's the thing about Calistoga too. You're competing. Sometimes people don't want to get up that far. They hit St. Helena.
Yeah.
And it's different when you're in Calistoga tasting too, because you're tasting a lot of downtown, where St. Helena is a lot of off of the highway and the vineyards. And
we do have a lot of those as well, but they are really, they are more remote,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. We've never been super vocal as a town. I'm actually part of I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm pretty invested in the town, to be honest. I bet on it. I love it. And I really want to see it, kind of move, but I want to see it move without losing its essence. And that's one of the things, if people don't come to Calistoga, I'm like, well, it's your loss, because I do feel that there is a energy and something that is, a little bit more exciting than St. Helena, personally.
I agree 1,000%.
We have a vibe,
I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah. So we just need to be better at communicating our vibe, which we are working on it. So watch out, St. Helena, we are coming.
So you bought your partner out in 2015 and moved into the wine and created the mercantile, or your store. How did that affect the way that how did you go about unraveling all your distribution?
Yeah. So, it wasn't as obvious as you see it. I bought it out and I'm like, okay, what are the next steps? I realized that, I need to change the business model. Then I find a tiny little place, but it took a while to get it up and running. At the time, my son was also 2-year-old. So I have a few things on the burner. So the city is actually the one that said, we don't want just more tasting room. If you had retail, it'd be a lot different. So I thought, okay, I can probably do that. And I'm like, oh, all right. I had no idea what I was getting into, let's face it. And I started with a few things, but not very many things. So every year, every month, I was like, okay. So I started with knife. I'm from the capital of knife in France. And then every month I was like, okay, I'm going to try to bring something else. And I was trying to find a theme. I was trying to go a little business about it.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out very much for me, because I was like, okay, should I do local? Should I do? And I just I was stumbling. And after a minute, I was like, why am I trying so hard? The way, I don't want to say I sell my wine. I want to say my wine sell. I tell their story, and people like the story, and then they like them and they buy them. And I thought, you know what? I don't really want to become a salesperson. I want to keep telling stories. So why am I trying to find things that fit? Why don't I just pick the things that I love already, and that I believe in the people, and that I want to share their story, And and so I had started with the knife, being frontier and having grown up there. I was, like I go back and all those guys are like, go Claire, you're telling our story in California, you're our supporter, like we're going to give you the town. They're just excited. So I thought, man, that's actually what I really want to do. I want to kind of like, tell their story, and then, sort of have the people see that the product is great and then their story is amazing and they should support them. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it grew literally. I think people were very confused, and they are still very confused when they enter my store, like, what's going on here? There is like this woman that does amazing, like her grandma taught her to make butterfly wings earrings. She's from Peru in the middle of Amazon. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I met her kind of like love attack, started talking, and I'm like, I want your stuff. Like so everything in the store is like that. It's like meetings across the travel that I've done or that I keep doing. I collect Native American art, and I really have a deep respect and love for their art. So as many talented artists I can represent, I love to do that. And then, things that I use myself and that I believe in. So when you do that, ultimately you're not selling. And so as I start, doing more of this, and then when I started, I was alone in the tasting room, so I couldn't travel as much as I used to. And so, the distribution started like kind of falling out a little bit of its own, if you don't, I believe you know the wholesale business, they need a lot of discount. They need you to go there, they need a lot. They need a lot. And I couldn't provide that anymore. So things just started like, sort of winding down of their own. And I kind of let them because I realized I was just moving cases at that point and I was not interested to do that. And then, to be honest, I love the people. A big part of why I still do what I do is because I love people. And you meet them and you have the instant reaction and, oh, I love your Sauvignon Blanc. It's not as acidic as, other people. Or, oh, I don't like your Chardonnay. It tastes different. I'm like, yeah, it's not as vanilla, huh? Uh-huh. And so anyway, it's great. You get the real, real people right in front of you. And I find it like, I personally really like it. So
I have one question for you about your wines. So yes. How are you getting a champagne? How are you doing this?
Because I love champagne. You should know already that answer. Wow. I don't do this stuff. So the reason I get a champagne, so I love champagne. For a moment, I know I cannot do champagne here. So I'm looking at making a sparkling, and I'm talking with a great friend that makes amazing sparkling. And then I have that extra Albarino fruit, and I love, there is that guy that makes a sparkling Albarino, Dan, that I really like what he does. And I was like, oh man, maybe I could do a little bit of that, with whatever I have left over. And then I looked at the cost and I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. There is no chance I'm doing it and selling that, $70, a bottle. So I was like, okay, done. We are not doing that. And then I'm like, well, maybe I just got to go to Champagne and talk with some folks there that would be interested to work with me. And so I started doing that a few years ago. And I had, I talked with several family and we started, the hard part is like, it takes a while, right? So at the beginning, you can only work on pretty much, the dosage or, like very much the dosage. So so I worked with, I started doing trials with a family. And then in the meantime, COVID happened and I ended up working with Lallier for a year. Then they sold to Campari. So Campari was like, oh yeah, no, thank you. We need it all. So we are not interested to continue working with you. So I went back to France and started talking again with some of the smaller family I had talked about. And we really hit it off with one of those guys. And so I started working with them last year. And it's fabulous. Their champagne has, never been here in the States. And I'm trying to become a little bit more part of, little by little of like the cuvée that we have together, first like with the dosage and then hopefully with time with a little bit more implication and other aspect. But it's, so that's how I get a champagne. It's because I really want to drink it. So when you have that motivation, Bianca, it works.
I love it.
Yeah.
In each step of everything you've done, it's almost like that old saying that if you lead with your heart, the money will follow. And it seems like from day one, from that first 1,000 gallons that you bought, you're leading with your heart, and then you're figuring it out.
It's that, and I will share with you the motto of Picayune. It's to a valiant heart, nothing impossible. And it's Jacques Coeur. He was a merchant way back then. And I believe that so much. And it's, I'm still a very intuitive and emotional person, but yeah, this is how I lead, with my heart. And I do it because I want to do it and I feel passionate about it. And whenever I do whatever I do like that, I am never worrying. I know, people can tell. It's just, it's true. So yeah, I just keep, as long as it works, I keep doing it. And the reality is, the other part is, I am sure you do as well. It's like we work so much that if I was not having a blast, I mean, I have 2 kids, I have a million other stuff, I want to do. So if I wasn't having that fun, I mean, I might as well go into something else. It's too much. It's not worth. So yeah. So continuing and just having a blast.
Oh, that's fantastic. How so you're importing from Champagne. You've got some connections there. Are you planning on doing some other imports, or
Yes, I actually do. I actually do. I have when I worked in Argentina, I became very good friend with an amazing woman, Jimena Pacheco, and she worked for some big winery in Chile. She worked for Montes for quite a bit of time, and then for other winery. And she started some time ago, she started her own label, and she's part of that new movement we were talking about in Chile. And so she does a lot of exciting stuff. I invited her this year. Every year I take 20 of my clients to France, and we go on an adventure. And so I invited her. We went to one of the trip was to Alsace, and so I invited her to come.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and so I asked her to bring some of her wine to share with everybody. And the wines were terrific. I'm excited about that coming from Chile. And so that's one of the things I would really like to do. I think it's going to take me a minute, but I'd love to go and work on something together down in Chile, because I feel like I would love to reconnect, because the country gave me a lot. It got me started on the route, and yeah, I'd love to make that connection at one point.
Have you tried any of the wines recently that have been imported from Chile?
Yeah, I mean, the latest I've tasted were, her wine. It's called Pulso, and honestly, they were like, yeah, I think she's doing an outstanding wine, outstanding job.
That's good. That's good to know, because I worked for an importer at one time that was importing wine from Chile, and I was not loving it at all. And so I'd love to see.
There's some great ones.
Yeah. It's hard because those tiny, one of the challenge for her is to find, an importer and a distributor for her wine. So she found a tiny importer in Washington State, but she's struggling finding, distribution. So actually, she's coming in September. I'm gonna hook her up with my broker in California. They are also an importer, so she can, kind of find new outlets. But I would love. On my list, I would love to do something with her. And then I have another friend that I met in Argentina. We were actually the group, the Musketeer, and he makes amazing wine in Australia. He's a Kiwi, but I think, one day down the road, we'll have to do something together. So yeah, whenever I find something fun, why not, right?
Seems to be a good business model of success. I want to hear more about these trips, because that's a great way to engage your clients, and that people can do it everywhere. Talk to me about this last trip to Alsace.
Yeah, so this came about, customer coming in and telling me, oh, it'd be so much fun to go to France with you. And I was like, when I go, I don't have very much time. I don't know about that. And the reality is, when I go, I always just have time for my family. I don't necessarily have time to go do the things I want to do. So then I started thinking, I was like, well, what if I was setting up trips to go do the things I want to do, and I just take a few of them with me? And
then
that's
you
how
can
I
tell
was
your
doing.
family that you're on business, so you can't see them.
Yeah, exactly. And then I invite one of them here and there, like I took my mom to one of them. And so then they got to see what I do. But yeah, so I had wanted to do that Alsace trip forever. And it was, so I basically, a lot of the time I rent a barge with a crew. So I have a chef and I have a little bit of a staff that helps with all the logistic. And I just, help with like the organization of the visits and things like that. So in general, like the trips are not like just wine centric. They are also about, what's going on in that region and what are the cool stuff to see. Mm-hmm. And then when there is not enough wine opportunities on the trip on itself, I add like a couple days before or after, and I just do it like super wine more intensive. So that way, only the people that are into it, come and do that part. So that's what we did in Alsace. And so, we just went and visited with some cool producer. And, for them, obviously, like a lot of those tiny producers, they don't speak English. Mm-hmm. And although Alsace is a little different than many other regions in France, they are better with their linguistic skills. But so it's cool to share that with them, and I try to make it fun. We this time I rented that like convertible minibus, and so we had a blast in that thing. And we got to go and see a lot of some great visit some great wineries, and then visit some. Like Alsace has like the most percentage wise, the most like Michelin restaurants star. And also we have a thing in France called the most beautiful villages of France. Uh-huh. And so they have also like one of the largest concentration, believe it or not. It's just unbelievable.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous. And the wines
I definitely want to go back. I mean, the wines were terrific. The people were the nicest people. We had like the most amazing weather as well. So it was a terrific experience.
Now, were your clients, are they familiar with Alsatian wines, or were they very surprised by the?
Yes. Most of them, didn't know very much. I had a few like wine gigs that were excited, to come. But for the most part, they didn't. And to be honest with you, every year I've been doing those trips, and it's the first time that I struggle actually selling out a trip. Well, I struggle. It took more time. Whereas in general, like I had a waiting list for Burgundy, and I was telling the people, oh my God, like I don't have more space on Burgundy, but come with me in, Alsace. It's going to knock your socks off. They would not do it. They would not go.
And there's something about Alsace, like back in the day when I was selling wine, we had a tremendous selection, and it was always the biggest eye opener for people when they finally tasted a dry Riesling. And it just opened their eyes. But it was always, even back in the day, it was very hard.
What do you think it is about it?
I think it's a sweet German wine.
Yeah, I think a lot. So I think there is like flat out ignorance, because the media, or there's never been like, how there's been like the Malbec thing. So then now everybody know where Argentina is. There has been like the Carmenere for Chile, or like, every region has kind of a moment. I feel like the Alsace thing was just a hipster thing that happened with the sommelier, but it never went to the public. Mm-hmm. And so I think, like Drew was saying, people still think it's like sweet German, or, and then they don't, they just don't know where it is. There is a lot of, I think Alsace could do as a region, maybe we should invest into people to help them tell the story and show the world, because I mean, I'm just dying to go back and take all my family again. I mean, they can grow anything. The microclimate they have is just unbelievable. They grow like, apricot, kiwi, I mean, you name it. They, like they were telling me, and I haven't double checked it, but they have like the most like sunny days, of France. It's just like, really, it's not possible. So anyway, I was really impressed by everything I saw in Alsace, and I don't really understand what it is. Maybe it's also that Riesling is a little bit more acquired taste. I don't know.
No, it's an odd thing, but it's so great that you're able to open people's eyes, and they've got a newfound appreciation. I think you're right on though with the marketing. Like if Alsace did what Austria did with Gruner Veltliners, I mean,
voila,
that sells out the door in Vons now.
Yeah, and everybody wants Gruner, and talk about like something that is also acquired taste. I mean, so I think they just gotta do that, and then they also have other varietal that they can work with. I mean, come on, they do have Pinot.
Yeah, no, there's some
Pinot
fun.
Gris. I mean, they have Pinot Grigio, right?
Yeah, well, no, Alsace aside, so you're opening people's eyes all across from the actual items in your store to the artists in Peru with the jewelry and the wines, and you're searching it out. Now, locally, how has the wines that you've done locally evolved?
You mean like how are my wines like locally done, or are they like locally accepted, or?
No. Like, so they're domestic, your I don't say regular wines, but your wines from California.
Yes.
So you're still sourcing from the Sauvignon Blanc and still searching out new and more interesting wines.
So the business model has evolved a little bit. When I opened the tasting room, I had to change my license and I had to start crushing fruit. So I do that. So I started buying some Sauvignon Blanc from the Hyde Vineyard. I love that the Hyde family is such a wonderful family. So I started buying a little bit of fruit from the Hyde, and then I had an opportunity. Friends of my American parents planted an Albarino vineyard in Russian River Valley.
Oh,
what about that one? And so the first few years, my husband was getting the fruit, and then after a while, it wasn't fitting in their program. So I was really excited to, take it over and kind of give it my own, the own like Picayune spin on it. So I get, every year like around 5-6 tons of Albarino, and then like recently. Well, last year, a local gentleman that I really like approached me and was like, "Oh, I have a small vineyard, and I'd love for you to look at the fruit." And if you knew how many people come and say that, like, "Oh yeah, okay, sure. Well, let me know." And he actually like the same evening like sent me an invitation for an event, and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess he's motivated," and I don't know. I decided I was gonna go see it, and oh my God, it's like it's in Knights Valley up in the hills, and it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. So I started getting it's a little over an acre. It's planted, and so I got 5 tons of cab from that area last year. So I still continue to buy barrels and juice and make blends. But I also have now those smaller, tiny programs that I do. And those, again, are led by the heart, in general, and something I want to do, or I feel like more ready to connect. When I do that, however, I lose the financial like plus that I have, meaning, I need to start buying, I have to buy a bunch of barrels, and I need to start paying, for barrel storage. And so then the cost of the wine ultimately, whenever I'm not doing the pure négociant, but when I buy fruit, then the cost of the wine start being totally different. So
then you're in a 2-year, 3-year cycle before you can get it to.
Yeah, pretty much. So I lose my edge on that. But so I feel like both have been able to coexist so far, and the rosé as well. I buy fruit. I've been buying fruit now for a while. So
exciting. You're just, gosh, it's so exciting to talk to you. Way it evolved in all you're into actual production from grape to bottle.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Claire, as we kind of wrap down, is there anything we haven't talked about?
I mean, we could keep talking for a while, as I see it.
I absolutely can.
But thank you so much. It was really great to share, and answer your question. And I hope, it was fun for everybody. It was really fun for me. I had a great time.
That's great. Claire, where can people find out more about you and Picayune Cellars?
Well, in Calistoga, come and visit.
Yes, you got hot springs there too.
Yes. So, there is a little bit of hiking as well. So come and visit in Calistoga. I'm the tasting room is downtown, but then online, PicayuneCellars.com. And you can find the wine. You can find a lot of the mercantile, and then we do offer experiences, lunch and dinner and all kind of things at the tasting room as well. So visit us.
I can't wait to visit. Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Drew. Thank you, Bianca.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.